With the double biceps, it is in the contract a legal requirement every single time we appear on camera. It is so good to be back, and especially sitting next to the esteemed gentleman that is none other than the breather of air, the co-founder, the co-host, the co-wearer of clothes in this very room. It is none other. I'm so sticky for the first time we did it. There's no audio when you were doing all that stuff. It is the king of sting, the Count of Monte Cristo, Thunderlips, the ultimate male. It is none other than the winner of the Dave Stockbridge of the Year award. There it is there in the background. You can see the illustrious award, and it is owned by the illustrious man with the illustrious beard. It is none other than your friend and mine. It is Dave Stockbridge. Stockbridge, welcome to the show.
Well, what a wonderful warm welcome after a bit of a hiatus. It's good to be back.
Yay. We're here. We made it.
Some little sound technical difficulties, but some teething problems. We're in our new AWE headquarters here, so I hope you're enjoying everything that you're seeing there in the background. So, and thank you very much for all of the wonderful support to all of the people that are out there that have been tuning into the AWE Underground channel and checking out our latest event there. Thank you all very much. And Hollywood Matt Connelly, I guess we're going to touch a little bit on that event and what's to come in 2025.
Absolutely, yeah. There's so many things that we've got to recap, and we had a tremendous event just recently here in Adelaide, and I can't even actually remember what the last thing that we were talking about in terms of on the show here, but there's been so many happenings in the world of AWE, and we should probably maybe kick things off with the AWE Grand Prix 2, which was a tremendous event held here in Adelaide, only a few streets away from where we are right now. And it was an 8-man double elimination tournament. We had some of the best talent that we could get from the Southern Hemisphere competing. We also had a super match between Ashley Huita from New Zealand, the New Zealand's strongest woman, and a world record holder in bench press, 317 kilos. She is able to push up over. It's absolutely insane.
Incredible. And nominated for New Zealand Woman of the Year.
That's true. Absolutely. And she took on Australia's #1, Keziah Harrington. So that took place as well. And there was also a left-handed match with Rickard Bornman, and he took on Marcus Atirai. It was originally scheduled for Brett Coots, but unfortunately he was not feeling the best on the day, and he did actually injure his pec again, which is so horrible to see happen. But yes, he had an injury going in after the double elimination tournament, so he was unable to compete with Rickard there. But we saw an incredible event. How did you feel that the event went overall?
Oh, I was really happy with the way that the event went. I think all the feedback has been great, which is wonderful. But that's mostly from our friends, of course. So we're biased, but yeah, they thought it was great.
That thing you did was whatever it was. It was good.
It was the best. The production went really well. I feel like the performances of the athletes was great. We saw some emerging local talent taking on some of the best from the Southern Hemisphere, which was terrific to see. Like all events, we had our normal little hiccups and mini disasters on the way in, and athletes pulling out last minute and some a little bit before, and so there was a bit of a juggle with respect to filling the voids. But we did have that opportunity to feature some spectacular up-and-coming talent, and it was just great to see those guys on the table. I guess we got to see and answer the question about, is Rickard Borman, the real champion? Was it a fluke? Was Grand Prix 1 just one of those things? But I think we've answered that question now as well. I think Rickard Borman's due for bigger things, and of course, if you look through the comments of the video, you'll see exactly that. People are saying, let's get Rickard on an international table. Let's see what he can do. He should be taking on the best in the world, not just the best from around the oceanic region, for instance. And so I think people are expecting big things of Rickard Borman in 2025, but also I think there were some great stories to come out of Grand Prix 2. And Alex McKinnon, I think, was one of those great stories to emerge out of AWE 2 as well. So.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, the dragster, the Canberra dragster, and Alex McKinnon, the dark horse, the surprise superstar of the day, put on an absolutely tremendous performance and had some amazing results. And it was funny because he wasn't originally in part of the 8 that we had scheduled, but the Tahitian Giant was unable to make it over. And I think we were trying to figure out who we were going to get as a replacement. And Alex had messaged Ryan and said, "Oh, by the way, I'm heading down to Adelaide, to check out the event. It's going to be fun. I've got my ticket.
Well,
Everything's
I
all
think he'd
good."
actually just won tickets.
Yes,
Yes.
right.
So he won himself a couple of
Ah.
VIP tickets. And so he was indeed heading down here. He was going to be there on the sidelines watching from table side. And then when, sorry, I kind of took
No, you go.
And then of course, when the Tahitian giant pulled out, it was like, well, who's going to be, who would be a suitable replacement? And Ryan said, well, Alex McKinnon's a killer. You got to get him on the table. And we're like, okay, well, yeah. I mean, we've seen what he can do interstate. We haven't actually laid eyes on him personally, and we ran with Ryan's judgment on that. And I've got a feeling that maybe Ryan was regretting that at some point during the course of the competition on the day.
Yeah, well, he ended up having to face off against him twice. So, but yeah, because I know Alex is the dragster,
Yes.
and I had no idea who Alex McKinnon was.
Who's this Alex McKinnon kid?
and Ryan's like, "Oh, Alex McKinnon, yeah, no, he's this a really good arm wrestler from Canberra. He took out like the titles there like comfortably."
And you're like,
and,
yeah, but that was the dragster.
I was like, who is it? Like, let me see his footage. And I'm looking and I'm like, I don't, because I think the shot was from behind or something. I didn't recognize. I have met Alex before. He came for AWE 1, I think, and he ended up.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
We had him at the club, and I've been on the table with this guy, but I know him as the Canberra dragster. I think because that's his Instagram handle, and you get synonymous with
synonymously associated.
Yeah, exactly. With that, and I was like, okay. And then when I figured out, I was like, oh no, that's no, he's good, he's great.
No sound, bro.
Hey, no, that was from before.
Oh, good.
Yeah. that was the last attempt at it. Yeah. So yes, hopefully people can hear us this time, but
if you can't hear us, let us know.
Yeah, well, they probably wouldn't be able to because they wouldn't hear it. I can't hear myself in my headphones.
Well, there's 3 people.
Yeah, well, they wouldn't have stuck around this long if they couldn't hear us. So, yeah, those 3 people who are just very, very silently watching. They refuse to comment. They're not commenting types.
They're not the engaged.
That's right. They will be in the background, in the shadows. They will refuse to touch the keyboard. Oh, no, there he is.
Chris Murch is on board.
Murch. He's the first. And Desmond Aldred Green has also jumped in as well.
Fantastic.
Loud and clear. There you go.
Oh,
fantastic.
Wonderful news. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we were hinting very much that we wanted to let us know that our setup is working.
Some confirmation.
Because it wasn't working a few minutes ago.
Quite appropriate that it was Chris Murch from Intrinsic Media, the man behind the cameras on the day of our AWE Grand Prix 2 event, who picked up on the technical assistance required there. So thank you very much, Chris.
Yeah, it turns out you've got to plug one of the cables in. That seems to be the trick.
Alex McKinnon, big story of the day. What other big stories kind of emerged for you?
Well, I mean, the Richard Bourne was the highlight for everyone. I think they were all there to see, is he going to live up to the hype? And probably his biggest threat going in was going to be Brett Coots. And Brett had been training very, very hard for this. He'd been doing 2 sessions a day for weeks, leading up to it. He was very focused. He had game planned, and he said, I think I've got a lane or an option against Rickard, which we were like, I don't know what that could be. Like, he's so dominant with his press. And I mean, Brett is an inside puller, so he wants to go in and hook. And so to see, it's like, what could he possibly,
what was he cooking up there? What was he working on exactly?
Right.
I would, and I still don't really know.
Oh, I know now.
You do now?
I know now.
Maybe are you able to spill the
I am, because it's happened. So yeah, absolutely. So his idea was, rather than trying to meet Rickard at the top with the top roll, or with his press going inside, his idea was to go straight back and down. Like really fast back and down, and which I mean, it didn't work out on the day, but he had that and he did it to me on the table, and it felt really bloody strong, like, and I wasn't expecting it. So yeah, fantastic effort from Brett. Brett Coots to step up on the day.
And I wonder if that's what might have antagonized his lat, because that was the injury that he incurred in that final couple of weeks leading up to the competition.
Yeah, it could have been. Absolutely. He did have a lat tear or something going into it. Yeah, unfortunately, no one's ever going to be 100% when they go into a competition. It always seems to be some little injuries or some sickness or it's.
But I can't wait for the day that Brett Coots is 100% injury free, no niggles on the table, and is able to dominate. That day has to come. We have to see peak Brett Coots.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've got a comment here from USS Liberty, and he says that Ryan was his biggest threat, in my opinion, but I was wrong. That's all right. It's okay to be wrong. And Ryan did go up against Brett Coots in the tournament twice and was unable to get a victory. And he still actually hasn't got a victory on Brett Coots throughout his career.
0-19 or something, according to Brett, I think.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Something similar to that. So
yeah, absolutely.
Everybody's got their bogey man, and Brett Coots is that for Ryan Bowen, it seems. So, but also, this was really the first time that we'd seen on the table that significantly downsized version of Ryan Bowen. Just a few short months ago, he was walking around at close to 110 kilos, and coming into this event, he just put on a little bit of weight to get to 90. So, and also had spent the previous 3 weeks in India and been on the table every single day whilst he was away. So you'd imagine there was some fatigue there. There was also, what was the effect of having lost the best part of 20 kilos in such a short period of time. Now, if you speak to Ryan feels like he's stronger than ever, even stronger than when he was heavier. So maybe it was a little bit of over competing or a little bit too much table time in the lead up to the event that meant that perhaps Ryan Bowen wasn't at 100%.
Yeah, I know he's dealing with it was like an ulnar nerve issue, and I think at some point he'll have to get surgery on it. I think from what he was explaining is that when you close and open your arm, there's a certain point, like when he's straight, he's okay, and then when he gets to about there, like the nerve drops out of the groove, and from there to there is like lightning stabbing pain, which sort of forces him.
Not great for an arm wrestler, is it?
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's what you want. You want to feel excruciating pain every time you get on the table, which is what he was been facing. So, so his lane is either really up close or that very extended King's move, because anything sort of mid range is agony.
He's really struggling with,
yeah, absolutely. So, but from what he has said, the surgery for it, the recovery is quite quick. I think it was a 6-week sort of turnaround. So, but you've got to get 6 weeks where he doesn't have a match.
Yes,
he's got matches all the time.
Very busy man, very busy schedule. And so for those people who've been who haven't yet seen AWE Grand Prix 2, you can head over to the AWE Underground channel right now and join the now 12,000 people that have already viewed the video. And what's been remarkable from our end, because we get to see the analytics and get an understanding as to what people when they're dropping out or whether they're watching it all the way through, there seems to be huge retention. So once people start watching, they don't want to drop off. And I guess this event, because it was first to 2 pins, whereas AWE Grand Prix 1 was first to 1. So in terms of the overall watch minutes here, twice as long as the first event, or a little bit more than twice as long. And so, but nonetheless, those people that are jumping on board and watching it are hanging in there and watching it right to the end. So thank you very much, because of course that really helps us with the algorithm and ensures that it gets out to ever more people. So
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. No, it is critical to the success of what we're doing. So we'll say hello to a couple of people in the chat here. We've got Lucky, who is one of the female arm wrestlers in America and runs a fantastic podcast every Saturday night, which is targeted for to get more women involved in arm wrestling. Franch from our club has actually been on the show.
Fantastic.
And she's been doing tremendous things over there. And Chris Murch says clearly the biggest threat was Dave and Hollywood. That is why they had to put you both on other duties.
It's true.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we can't be seen showing up. The talent. But yeah, it's
Gotta
sort of
give
like Vince McMahon coming down and
we got to give everybody a go.
that's right. And USS Liberty was 0-19. Yeah, he is. Well, he's been competing against Brett for many, many years, and yes, unfortunately, he's never got not a official victory against him, which I think is one of his goals. Is I must beat Brett Coots at some point. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to get the job done. It was 4 attempts at the Grand Prix 2, but Brett being able to get the victory. So yeah, it's maybe next time.
Yeah.
And I'll bring up the video here, which is one of the handy features of what we're doing. Let me share the screen, and we will bring up. I don't want to share the audio. I just want to share the screen. And how does that look? There it is.
There we go.
And we'll press play. So that is the Grand Prix, the AWE Grand Prix 2, which is on the AWE Underground YouTube channel. You can see there, this was the highlights from the very first Grand Prix, which was in Brisbane. And that was another match which took place between Brett Coots and Rickard Bornman, which was the final. And so Brett made it to the final at the first Grand Prix, and the result is that he made it to the final in the second one as well.
Yeah.
So he does well in tournament structures.
Brett
Coots able to get through quite comfortably through the early rounds, and he did say that he did get the pec injury against Ryan though, so he was going into that final match with Rickard with the injury at having already sustained it. And I think in that last round you could see that he was halfway through the match he was like, oh no, that's hurting.
Yeah.
I need to abandon ship here because it's just going to put more. I'm just going to tear that further, and there's no point.
No.
So you see there, the Dave Stockbridge on the right there, doing a tremendous job with the announcing all day, and it was really hyped up the crowd and really got people excited. I think that you did the announcements for each walk-in for every match, and one of my favorite things was seeing the reaction of each person as they would walk out. And some people, like you see Rickard here, he looks quite comfortable, quite relaxed. He was, ready to go and ready to have his moment. Other people looked a little bit sheepish, a little bit like, oh, everyone's looking at me, and I don't think they were expecting to get such a big, welcome and a big introduction like yourself.
Well, for a lot of these athletes, and I don't think these camera angles actually do it justice, but there was about 120 people in the room, and it was absolutely packed. There was standing room only at the back in the end, and I think this is the first match up, and there was still a few seats to fill in at this stage. We had about a dozen or so people turn up just as the event was getting started. So it's probably not until after the first intermission that you would notice that the room is really solidly packed. But still, it's for a sport where you're used to walking into a room of your mates and there might be, a dozen or 2 dozen people, to having 120 people there that are there to see a professional sporting event.
Yes.
And some of whom were obviously arm wrestling fans. They were local arm wrestling fans. Others were arm wrestling fans that traveled from all over the country to be there. And then we just had people that heard of this event that was going on who just turned up, and it was their first experience of arm wrestling, and they spent their afternoon learning a lot about it. And then, of course, straight afterwards, meeting the stars at the after pool, which was really, really cool.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best things about arm wrestling events is that, and a lot of people turn up just to do the after pulling.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like, oh, who's going to be there? Oh, okay, I'm definitely coming now, because you might get the opportunity to get on with them and actually arm wrestle with them.
Yeah.
And I know Rickard was, the most popular man in the room straight after the event, because everyone wanted to get on the table with him.
I think about half the room was from the Transvaal. It was a fairly large South African contingent there on the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Grant Law says, your efforts to pronounce Rickard properly has not gone unnoticed. You are now both officially honorary Afrikaners.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, that's great.
Certainly appreciate that, Grant.
Oh, that's good. I did enjoy that the Aussie arm wrestler Jake Ward kept changing the pronunciation.
I like that he's got 15 ways of saying
it.
Yeah,
he did. It started one way and ended a completely different way.
But it was like a full spectrum in between. It was nice. It was
I
good.
think by the end it was Ricard. I
Ricard,
was
I
like,
think. Yeah.
that's not it. But
Yeah.
okay, we know who you mean.
Just slid into Ricard in the end. Yeah.
That's right, absolutely. So thank you for that comment there, Grant. And yeah, this was a good moment for me to see Stephen Carroll get his spotlight for. He's worked very, very hard over many, many years. Actually, Grant Law is there sitting in the audience there on the left-hand side of the screen for a second. You could see him in
He was the
AWE
best looking
skin.
man you could see.
Very,
very
he was
quickly.
the
There he is.
African one, the South African one.
With the AWE shirt,
That's
just
right.
in the back there.
But yes, I think Stephen knew.
Look at Brett Coots.
Yeah, when you're going up against this monster that's coming into the room, like, you know, with 20-inch biceps, 6-inch forearm, an absolute legend in the sport of Australian arm wrestling. It's like, have I got him first round? It's like, yeah, okay, I know I'm going to the B side.
First, they tell you you're up against the oldest guy in the competition first, and you go, yes. And then they say it's Brett Coots. And it's,
that
really?
took the wind out of your sail. But yeah, in terms of how it looks and feels, with the production side of things, I feel that it came across very well on the screen. You could see that the audience interaction there, people are invested in it. They actually are really interested in what's happening, and definitely are keen to see the results of each match. The lighting I really liked, and yeah, just I don't remember seeing any fouls or any major restarts. We had a couple of slips to straps, but apart from that, it flowed very nicely going through the entire event, which I think really helps with that retention of people watching. Is that you're watching it? It's like, okay, this guy versus this guy. Like, they get strapped together, and you get a result. You don't have 20 minutes of messing around with restarts and fouls and slips, and then another restart and another, and it's like, oh god, when are they actually gonna? And that's round one, you know. It's like,
well, although the athletes could appeal if they felt like they got a wrong call, I don't think we had one of those either.
No,
so there was no replays, no appeal to the judge. No,
there's no controversial moments, which was fantastic. I think Tim Graham, the referee there, did a tremendous job on the day. And you see Brett Coots just way too strong for the Squid. I'm not happy with his nickname. He likes it, but I don't like it.
We'll come up with something else. But yeah, Tim Graham and Ben Ettridge did a fantastic job of officiating throughout the day, and of course made sure that the event had a wonderful flow as well, which is something we're really keen on at AWE, not just for those people that are watching from home, but for those people that are in the room. The last thing any of those people that are sitting there who have dedicated their afternoon and got their tickets, the last thing those people want to do is sit around and wait 45 minutes for 3 pins.
Yeah.
You know, what they want to see is action on the table. They want to see what's coming up next. And the format was beautiful for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We've got S.A. Shaden. He is watching from Bangladesh. Great to see you in here.
Thank you very much.
And Kyle Davison, King Kyle, says the product looks fantastic, fellas. Can't wait for next year's event. Thank you very much, Kyle. We need to get a nickname for you, because I'm going with King Kyle, but
King Kyle, yeah.
I think he's tried about 6 different other ones so far, but he's a big fan of wrestling. I think he wants to get the perfect nickname. It's not going to happen, Kyle.
So yeah. Well, Chris Murch in the chat, who from Intrinsic Media, they were the people that were taking care of the production side of things and capturing those images that you see right here, and so did a fantastic job of presenting a top quality product. So thank you very much to Chris and his team. Thank you to Grant Law, who did a fantastic job in hyping the event and engaging the Murdoch media and others, and actually could have done so much more, but because of various things on the peripheral of this particular event, we weren't able to take full advantage of all of Grant's services pertaining to how he could better promote the event. But Grant Law has a public relations business, and we couldn't suggest anybody better than Grant Law, and he was able to do this for our little sporting event and got us some fantastic free media in the lead up to it, and made a huge difference to filling that room on the day. So congratulations, Grant. Well done. Thank you.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, tremendous effort from all of the people that are supporting us through the event. A lot of support from the community of arm wrestling, and
SA
seeing,
Titans guys.
yeah, absolutely, yeah, for sure, and seeing people coming from all around Australia to come down to see the event was just absolutely amazing. Kyle Davison says the perfect nickname is out there, and he will find it. The Hunter, maybe.
Oh, the Hunter.
Ooh,
The nickname Hunter.
the Hunter. I'll give that to someone else, so you can't have it.
And there's Alex McKinnon right there. So it was one of the real success stories from the day. So for a lot of people outside of Australia wouldn't be familiar with the dragster from Canberra, and he's been dominating the local scene for some time around there. And this was a great opportunity for him to stand on a bigger stage, and he really made the most of it. Is it this first round that there was that awkward, that awful sound that something it sounded like something had broken or popped. There was a pop in the elbow, and we
second round
for a little bit we really thought the worst, but somehow it was all fine and he came back stronger. So maybe that's something he needs to work on, is get that elbow popped in the earlier on, and might get a couple of extra wins under his belt. But
I did see a post from him on Instagram maybe 3 or 4 days ago that said something about a torn elbow ligament.
Oh, no.
So that was probably it. But Ryan Bowen flash pinning through Alex McKinnon right there. But it was the second round where Alex really started to shine. And unfortunately, if we'll keep this playing, but you'll see the injury take place. Something happens with Alex's elbow, whether or not that was when the ligament tore, but he was able to regather himself and continue on in the tournament, and he did a phenomenal job, looking incredibly strong, getting some big wins over some big names, notably Marcus Satirai, which was just a big surprise. Like, I think apart from Alex, I think everyone else finished in their seeding position. So, seeded from 1 to 8, and everyone finished in their position, except for Alex. I think he was the one that jumped quite up a few spots based on his performance.
So one of the great wars in this event was Charles Puri on the table with Marcus Satirai. There was a big back and forth, maybe one of the longest rounds of the whole tournament, and those guys really went to war early on, and it was it was a real sight to see. Some of the best photos from the event came from that particular matchup too. So Charles Puri has been number 2 in New Zealand for many years, and he's been really biting at the heels of Mateo Arungi over the last couple of years. And it was actually at Mateo Arungi's suggestion that we selected Charles to come over. Mateo was not available, and he's got a few little irons in the fire, and said, but Charles, it's his time. Like, he's ready, and he came over and represented New Zealand beautifully, and did a fantastic job.
Because if you're talking about it, we should see it. And what a match it was. Charles Puri and Marcus Satirai, that first round here. We'll just get to that. And
this is really where you saw the crowd get involved, because there were, as you can imagine, early rounds of the tournament. It's 1 and 8, 2 and 7, and those matches don't tend to last very long. But this was 4 and 5, I think, in the seeding. These are the two men that were pitted very, very closely, and that's exactly what the matchup. And I just wonder now, how this might have been as a first to 4 or first to 5 super match. It may have been very much a different outcome. There's some seeds that have been planted in our minds as a result of what we saw at this event as well. And we'd love to see some of these matchups in a slightly different format. And I think that's one of the really cool things about this Grand Prix format. And it's that none of these performances negatively affect these athletes' abilities to secure that next super match.
Yes.
This is and as you can see from this particular round, it's a war.
Oh yeah.
And so you would like to think that whoever was seated 1 and 2 is very, very happy about this. So, which was Brett Coots and Ricky Bowman.
Yeah,
And
so right here you can see the power of the King's move and gassing out your opponent. Charles Puri giving it absolutely everything here to try to get that pin. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to get through Marcus. Marcus looking very comfortable throughout the match. You can see him there, very relaxed.
Charles was able to keep it very close, though, wasn't he?
Yes.
Very, very close to his shoulder that whole time. I was super surprised because literally had 165 kilos hanging off the other end of it.
Absolutely. But I think I spoke to Marcus afterwards about that, and he said, because I said, that's probably the worst way to start off the tournament is having a war. And you gassed for the rest of the whole, and especially 2 rounds of war.
Yes.
And he said, he goes, I was looking at Charles like, what are you doing? Why are you giving absolutely everything you've got here? Like, I've got this spot. You're not going to get through. You should feel that you can't get through that. Why are you burning out everything? You're burning both of us out here.
Charles had other feelings, I suspect. So
he was looking at that pin pad that was 2 inches away and going, I can get there.
He kept it tight for a very, very long time. It was, that was a war. I would love to see that go to first to 5. But that's the difference with the format. You're going to see slightly different outcomes. You're going to see some athletes that are out of the box very, very quickly, who are very powerful, who've got. I think this format certainly benefits pressers. Those people that have got really quick reaction times, they're able to get through those early rounds and put themselves in good positions. And then all you need is a couple of big guys like Marcus and Charles to go to war, and you might be seated behind. But if they're already fatigued and you've got through those early rounds with very little damage, then you can be that dark horse. You can be that guy that goes from 6th seed, all of a sudden you're in the semifinals, and have got a puncher's chance at that stage. And that's a really cool thing about this tournament. So we saw some standout performances. I really enjoyed watching that particular matchup with Charles and Marcus. I think that was spectacular and kind of alludes to what might be in a super match format. I love to see Alex McKinnon this kind of rise to fame and significance now. He's definitely on everybody's radar, and he's a real threat at heavyweight, and a smallish heavyweight, at about 100 or so kilos, but a real threat, and proved himself. And I don't think we got to answer too many questions about what a downsized Ryan Bowen can do. I think that he may have been a little bit too fatigued from his trip to India to really probably answer that, but really keen to see how early 2025 looks for Ryan in his new physique at 90 kilos. It'd be very, very interesting to see what 2025 has to hold for him. And according to Ryan, he could easily lose another 4 or 5 and be at 85 kilos and still feels that he'd be as strong as he would be if he was close to 110. So that's super interesting. So we've seen Ryan go on a real journey over the last 2 or 3 years when it comes to his weight and his training, and now his eating, and he's seemingly bringing it all together right just in time for 2025.
Absolutely. So he's sitting around that 90 kilo mark, and I think he's looking at competing in the 85 kilo mark. So for the US viewers or anyone who's doing the pound conversion, 90 kilos is 200 pounds. So 85 would be maybe like 190 pounds, something around there. But he's definitely targeting that different weight class. It was quite funny when we were over in India, and you get used to seeing him at that size, and then he brought up a photo of himself on the beach
with the moustache.
Did he show you that as well?
He looks like his dad.
Oh man, that was the best. I'm like, the only thing missing is the gold chain. Like, he looks like a different person, or like one of those photoshopped images where like the filter you can put on to like blow somebody up.
He looks like a character playing a police officer like set in the 1980s. That's what it looks like, and he had to put on weight for the role. That's what it looks like. It's
yeah, for sure. Well, it's the good thing that we saw. So we saw Ricky Bourneman come out as the victor in this, and very comfortably moved through the competition. and the afterpool as well.
Yeah.
But he has a match scheduled in Knuckles Up on January 25th against Don Hollywood Underwood.
Mm.
And yeah, it's going to be a phenomenal test for Rickard. I believe it couldn't be a better opponent because not only is Don a legend in the sport of arm wrestling, but he has the charisma, he has the ability to sell a fight, sell a match, to be the talking point. And when you're an up and coming superstar, you're very humble, like Rickard is. You don't hear a lot of trash talk coming from his side of things. You don't hear him saying, I'm going to be world champion, I'm going to be the best in the world. He would never say something like that. He might believe that he could be, but in terms of like him actually verbalizing that, you're not going to see that sort of attitude from this young man. He's very humble, very polite, a wonderful young man, and to go against somebody who will abashedly, happily, attack him in terms of the showmanship side of things in selling this fight, there's none other than Don Hollywood Underwood, with may have been number one in the world at one point in time, but he is a phenomenal arm wrestler. He's on a bit of a comeback trail at this point. He had some hip surgery, but it's sort of the ideal matchup for two reasons for me. One is you've got a rising superstar in Rickard Borman, and it's like, okay, well, here's your opportunity. If you're good enough, if you're as good as everyone thinks, then we'll put you against one of the legends of arm wrestling, and we'll see if you beat Don. Then okay, maybe you've got what it takes. We'll get you maybe an even higher profile match from then on. Whereas for Don, it's like, okay, you're coming back from an injury. We've got an up and coming superstar. If you've still got what it takes, here's your opportunity to prove it. So it works really well for both guys. And there is still that question mark on there as to what's going to happen on the table. It could be a 50-50 match at this point in time.
Yeah, well, Don Underwood's certainly taking it seriously. He's training harder than he's ever trained before. I think he feels like, this is a great opportunity for him to shine and to demonstrate that, regardless of all the hype that might be out there about some young emerging talent, he has what it takes. He's still got that old man strength, and he's still should be considered in that discussion when people are talking about the top 10, maybe the top 5 of all time. Don Underwood should be part of that discussion. And how it's always interesting. I guess what we don't want to see, of course, is like a Tyson Jake Paul style of blowout. We don't want to see that. And I was of the I honestly believe Mike Tyson was going to win. And I believe Mike Tyson was going to win, and I didn't put any money on it, fortunately. But I wanted to believe, and I hope that all of this hard training and all of this hype that's coming out of Don Underwood isn't kind of like that Tyson-esque build up of that's just going to lead to perhaps disappointment. I hope that Don has everything that he says he's got left in the tank and is prepared to leave it all on the table there on January the 25th next year. So but Rickard Borman, he is a phenomenon, and I know he's a rare natural talent. He may be one of the, he might, as far as I can see it, is a once in a generation type of talent that you come across in all the sports. And is he arm wrestling's Michael Jordan? I don't know, but we'll see. And I think this is a big step along that journey. This is Rickard's first foray overseas and on a major international promotion, and Knuckles Up will provide him with that platform to show the world exactly what he can do.
Absolutely, yeah, couldn't have said it better there. And I'd love you to read out this username here.
Sylvester's Talone.
I love it. It's my favorite one. Sylvester Stallone. Oh, so good, so clever. So we'll address the comments here. James Lee Gillenwater says Rickard is too much for Auden. I do believe so. I mean, Rickard is competing with the adult seniors and everything at this point in time. I think that he has the ability to go to that world championship level. Although Auden, I think he may have the same ability, but I think that his matches that he's been lining up have been more about as much attention as they can get for arm wrestling and as attention they can get as many people to view their matches as possible.
You'd have to imagine that Auden's got a great team. He's got maybe the greatest marketing mind in the sport there in his dad, who knows how to create hype and attention and expectation and all of those things that are critical to making an event really work. And so they'd be carefully charting out a course for Auden to ensure that both of those things that you were just suggesting, that Auden's got a clear pathway and is making advancements and stepping towards a greater future, but also so that the sport people can be pulled along in Auden's wake and get a glimpse into that next generation and feel that there's those current fans feel that there's that future, that lineage that's starting to emerge in the sport, which every sport loves those lineages. You've got the Gracies in MMA and BJJ, for instance. These dynasties that emerge within our sport, with the Larratsby, that first dynasty where we see, two world or three maybe world class athletes emerge and out of that family and more into the future. It'll be very, very interesting. But you would imagine that Auden's still very much growing into himself as well. And every time you turn on the tally and you see him, it looks like he's 2 inches taller, and it looks like he's going to be a bigger man than his dad maybe as well. He's a big frame. I feel like of those two athletes, Rickett looks right now like he's an elite athlete in any sport you want to put him in. It wouldn't matter if it was gridiron, rugby, whatever the sport is. Rickett Borman is a high performance individual who would be ready to perform at close to a world class level in almost any discipline.
Yes.
But Auden, you don't get that feeling. You feel like he's still got a few years to develop until he's really entering that purple patch of his career. And so it's really exciting to see a young athlete like Auden, who is doing so well already in terms of building up his own career and building up the profile of the sport, but who also has so much more to give into the future, and still got we've got so much more to look forward to with Auden. Rickett is ready baked. He's ready to go. There's no maturity required. He just needs a table and an opponent, and he could be capable of taking on with some high degree of credibility top 5 people in the world. He is already there. So, for those people that talk about, this type of matchup, it would appear from our perspective to be somewhat of a mismatchup, unfortunately.
Again, to Auden, Rickett and Auden, absolutely, I completely agree. I think you're 100% right there. Excited though. It's great to see that not only is Rickett being talked about, but Auden as well. Obviously. These young up and coming arm wrestlers that we want to see have bright futures and long careers in the sport of arm wrestling. We've got a little bit of a change of topic here with this question here. Mike Tyson deal rigged? No, wouldn't rigged at all. Don is looking ready for sure. Rickett should face Pork Chop. Pork Chop is from Canada, I believe.
Yes.
A very good arm wrestler over there. And we'll have to see what happens on January 25th as to what the future lies for both guys, both Don and both Rickett, after that match takes place. But if Rickett happens to get the victory, then he'll be looking for more high-profile opponents and looking to climb the ladder and really establish himself as one of the best in the world.
Indeed.
Intrinsic Media says Levan, Devon, and Brezink when, as in, is that? Are you asking, Chris, if when is Rickett going to be facing all of those guys? Well. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what happens with his career. But those are the top guys in the sport you've named there. So you've got number 1 and 2, and then Brezink is probably like
greatest of all time.
Yeah, exactly. So it's we'd love to see it, but I think we'll get him there gradually. We'll build him up in the right way. We don't want to throw somebody into the lion's den and not have the experience to be able to know how to find victory. Captain Obvious says, shame we can't see a Rickett versus Lachlan anytime soon. They seem to have a developing rivalry. Yeah, I don't think that there's much behind that, really. I think they're training partners. Lachlan and Rickett look to sharpen each other's tool. They're looking to build each other up, make each other better. And that is one of the best things about arm wrestling that I've found, is that everyone is willing to support each other and help each other and get on the table and talk tactics. And
Well,
so,
also, I think fundamentally, they're different weight divisions.
yeah,
So Lachlan sits comfortably at that 105 type level, and feels that when he pushes himself to 110 and above, that he's really putting the whole system under pressure. And Rickett is walking around at 125 with no problems,
Yeah.
and is 21 years old.
Yeah.
So one would imagine there's still some filling out to do with Rickett Borman. And so what does an athlete of that frame look like when he's 27, 28, 32, 38?
Yeah.
So there's so Lachlan works very closely with Rickett in training, and as Matt was saying, they're sharpening each other's swords and making each other better for their respective weight divisions. So, but they're definitely the two that are now gapped the rest of the field, it would seem, in Australia. So
That's true.
there's a bit of a ways back. Well, you've got Brett that's now sitting comfortably, I guess, in that number two position behind those two guys. So number three maybe, and then there's a little bit of room there to the rest of the peloton. So as the Grand Prix events have exposed, and so our will was, of course, to get the best from Polynesia, the Tahitian giant from over to Australia, but that would have been a great test to have somebody of that stand. I think he's number 2 in France as well.
Wow,
TNT. So it would have been good to have had him here to be that X factor in terms of who can challenge both Brett and Rickett here, and establish themselves as a real regional rival for these two. But we weren't able to see that at the event, unfortunately. So about 2025, there's lots in store.
That's right. I think that the great thing is when people see the events and they're like, oh, I want to be part of that, or I want to be in the next one, or how do I become part of the next show? And we've already had people like reaching out going, when's the next one? And I want to be, which weight class are you doing? And, it's like, oh, that's great. People want to be part of competing with the AWE, and that's what we want to do, is put on the best shows that we possibly can. But people are seeing it as that's a good testing ground, a proving ground for themselves, to say, well, hang on, if I want to be the best in Australia, I'm probably going to have to compete in that, and these are the top guys, and that's more than likely who I would be facing in a match. So your Rickard Bormans, your Brett Coots, your Ryan Bowens, your Mario Tambakas. It's like that's the level that you've got to be at to be competitive. And if you are competitive and you think you've got a chance, then we'd love to hear from you and put your hand up, and we'll see if we can get something happening. And maybe you walk away as the new AWE heavyweight champion, which is twice defended now by Rickard Borman. He was very happy to hold on to that belt and very proudly held onto it throughout the event, and came out with it every single time he walked out, which was awesome. I loved that. Sylvester Stallone says, your chuckle makes me think he might be too much for Pork Chop. No, I normally will laugh at everything I say. So Pork Chop is a phenomenal arm wrestler, and I would love to see the matches. But this is the thing for me, I'd love to see everyone go against everyone. Like you could say, what about this guy versus this guy? I go, oh yeah, I'd love to see it. I want to see arm wrestling. That's what I want to see. And I think that Pork Chop would be a great match. Whether it's on the cards in the future, we will wait and see. But he is a good arm wrestler for sure. And Kirill is also a suggestion there. He is also a very high level arm wrestler. What's this one here? Bornman versus Sarachev. Yeah, another. Oh, and Mega Mike as well. So lots and lots of options will open themselves up depending on his performance at Knuckles Up on January the 25th against Don Hollywood Underwood.
So all eyes will be on Knuckles Up on the 25th. We, of course, we would love to see here at AWE. We'd love to see Rickett walk away with the victory, but we know that he's up against a very, very formidable competitor, and not to be taken at all lightly. And of course, Hollywood is there just to just to really bring that whole hype train to a stop. That's as far as he's concerned. He just wants to see all the talk and discussion about Rickett being world class, Rickett being top 5, Rickett being the next superstar. He wants to shut it down. Wants to shut it down with a dominant victory, and he's training very, very hard at the moment for that. So that's going to really determine the trajectory of Rickett's 2025, because of course it was only earlier in the year that Rickett really emerged as this amazing talent. We had that opportunity to learn about Rickett a year or so before that, and of course brought him out to AWE 2, and of course he competed against Mario Tambakis on that occasion, and didn't walk away with the victory. But for a lot of people internationally, they wouldn't have been aware of Rickett, and some might not have been so aware of Mario, but Mario was certainly the bigger name of the two, and most people would have expected Mario to walk away with that victory. But then Rickett went to South Africa last Christmas. He went back home, and he came back about a month and a half later and was 20% stronger somehow. And so I don't know what Rickett's mum feeds him. But
it's the biltong, I think.
It's the biltong. It's the special recipe. But he's over in South Africa right now. So watch out, Don Underwood. Rickett's mum is feeding him right now.
Yeah, that's right. So it's like
special recipe
meals that he's getting there. But him and his younger brother is in phenomenal.
Devon,
which is a bright prospect in the
16 years old. This is Rickett's brother, 16 years old, 110 kilograms, and testing Rickett on the table. I mean, this is phenomenal. So that there's when we're talking about juniors and emerging talent, that household itself is delivering maybe the next generation of arm wrestling, dominant arm wrestlers out of South Africa. So 16 years old, 110 kilos, about 6'3" already, and one would imagine there's a bit of growth to be had, and certainly a lot of filling out to do. So
he's bigger than me already.
Yeah, already 60.
They probably beat me at arm wrestling too.
Ooh, so there's some phenomenal Afrikaans genetics being distilled into those two young boys, and so we're really looking forward to seeing what that young man can do on the table, and so 2025 will be a breakout year for Devon as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. It is a good comment here from Captain Obvious. He says, I keep forgetting how big Rickett is. His frame carries it well. Yeah, absolutely. He's same height as me, 6'3", but a lot thicker, like a very rugged young man.
Yeah, strapping.
Strapping young lad.
It was interesting. There was a little video that popped up on Instagram that one of our staff here saw, and it was just Rickett and I just standing, just pulling, and the comment was, "I can't believe how small you look."
Like, oh, thanks a lot. You could have not ridden that.
Yeah, I'm like 108 kilos. Like, I'm not tiny. Like,
exactly. Your arms are bigger than my arms. Like if I show you that, ladies and gentlemen, that's not a small arm. This man's arms are bigger than mine. You never see it because he's always hiding it in his suits.
It's like I'm a child. He's deceptively large. He's a big boy, and all natural, tested athlete. He came to Australia to be a rugby player, so he knows about all. He can be tested at any time, and he's still got half the door open on that future if he wants it as well. But we just hope he permanently has a hamstring injury and never returns to any sport that involves him running.
Or any other sport at all. It's one of the things. It's like we almost like, just please stay with arm wrestling. Don't leave anything, because he has the ability as a natural athlete to probably go and be dominant in anything he chooses to do.
I think one of the really cool side effects of Rickett's recent emergence has been South African arm wrestling's embrace of Rickett, because Rickett's development has largely been here in Australia as an arm wrestler, but as a country, they've really gotten behind it and used that momentum to promote their own competitions, and are doing amazing things over there in South Africa now. And of course, Terence Hopperman, such a big name, world class arm wrestler, still very, very prevalent there in South Africa, and very active to this day. But we haven't seen him on the international stage really since COVID, and so maybe 2025 is going to bring some of those big names from South Africa onto the international scene.
Absolutely, yeah. I was talking to Grant Law on Sunday night, who is
in the comments.
He's from the comments. From the comments. That's where he lives forever. He was also in the background in the audience, and so he's in multiple places at the same time.
That's amazing.
But he said that the guys over in South Africa, he goes like, here at the club in Adelaide, some of the guys you feel like. And to him, he said, everyone feels ridiculously strong. But he goes, but in South Africa, every single person there was untouchable. And it's just like, and they thought he was a top level arm wrestler. And he was trying his best to convince them that he wasn't, because there was the footage of him competing against Ryan Bowen in the tournament that we had.
Oh, yes.
And so they've seen that and gone, oh, well, he's obviously really up there if he's competing against Ryan Bowen.
I mean, they paid for his flights to go over there as accommodation.
He's like, I'm not at that level. You have to believe me. They're like, no, you'll crush all of us. And he's walked in, and I think he said, by the third person, they were like, okay, you were telling the truth.
You have disappointed all of us. We just need you to know.
Us.
You've disgraced the entire country. Please don't tell
Never
people.
Come back.
Can you tell people you're Scottish or something? We would appreciate that.
So good. Intrinsic Media, Chris Merch with a legitimate question. All of his previous questions were not legitimate, but this one is. It says,
okay, good.
With arm wrestling, are any of the promotions actively drug substance testing to allow only natural athletes? Yes, there is.
And there's a lot of them that are testing to make sure that they're on.
Yeah, you better be on something.
If you're not, you can't compete.
This came back
it's
clear.
Not safe for you.
We need to inject you immediately.
Test levels below 25. That's it.
That's it. You're out.
Yeah,
Get out of here.
Yeah. Take this file with you. Come back tomorrow.
No, it's the WAF. Is it WAF? Wow, I always get confused between WAF and WOW, but it's WAF. Yeah, WAF is a tested organization, and they run drug tests for them. But one of the issues with drug testing is that because it is so expensive to run a drug test, they are very limited with the amount of people that they can actually test. And so you might have a tournament with, 200 people, and you can do 3 tests. And it's like, well, you're probably just going to test the winners.
There's thousands of dollars a test, aren't there? It's not like a $300 test or a COVID test where and then you get it back and it will just say it'll say that you're on something, and then won't say how much or anything like that.
40 ratio.
But so there's amateur competition, which WAF regulate all of that. And if you're a banned athlete under WAF and you're competing in an event with maybe other that's sanctioned by WAF in some way, or that and that might be a professional event with a completely different set of rules, then you mightn't be able to compete in that. But it's a little bit like the US military used to be: don't ask, don't tell when you get to certain promotions and at a certain level of the sport where no one's testing and no one's asking the question, and so the presumption, there's a presumption of innocence that pervades the top levels of the sport. It would appear so. So is it completely tested at every level? No, but would Peter Till be well served to be funding an event? Yes. Peter Till should get behind top level arm wrestling, it seems.
But that's the thing. You could say you're a drug tested event and just test one person. Like that will class you as and you could test like somebody that you
came
80th in your tournament, and it's like, okay, and then they test positive and you're like, damn
it. But I think part of it is that, like, if it's the testing agency does it randomly, they select who it is that they're testing and all of that type of thing. So
that's right. There is a method to the way that they run it, and it is because I think that usually the simplest answer for them, and from what I've heard talking to the insiders that have spoken to the testing agencies, is like, well, who do you actually pick? And they say, we've got a pretty good idea on the
Yeah.
day as to who we want to
Mm.
choose, and if we don't have an idea on people, then we'll just go with the winners.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
I guess a high profile athlete that's showing obvious signs of usage
Just
might be
needle still in the arm.
it's a sign. It's a sign.
It's a sign. It's insulin. It's just insulin. It says Sustanon, but it's not. That's how they say it in Russia.
But in short, AWE, we don't test. We're strictly a promotion. We're not an organisation as such, or don't have a governing body, nor do we conform to any governing bodies, strict rules and regulations or anything like that. We're all about presenting arm wrestling in the most entertaining and professional way that we can, and we trust our athletes to have those discussions amongst themselves and make the determination as to whether they feel comfortable in competing, and invariably they say yes and are all on board. So and it's a real genuine mix, I would say, of athletes, and because you've also got different ages of athletes, different health needs associated with those athletes, and yeah, but Jake Ward's definitely on the gear, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, we injected him when he came over.
He looks bigger next
That's
time.
what healed his hips. It wasn't surgery at all.
No.
It was 200% bigger. No, it is one of those question marks that's always around sports, and I think it's always going to be a cat and mouse game as to people are always going to be looking for an advantage in some way. I mean, you were talking about playing mini golf on Friday night and people cheated in that. So.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, there was 30 people and 4 still cheated. So mini golf, there was no prize. There was nothing to win. But
they got to say, "I'm the winner."
They
just wrote down the score, one for everything.
Yeah.
18 holes in a row. Yep.
Well, I also think it does depend, Chris, on whether the sport or the promotion has aspirations of being an Olympic sport, or obviously, depending on the sport, might affect their ability to attract sponsorship money, that type of thing. So I guess the commercial implications of not being tested once promotion gets to a certain level are such that it may raise the ire of big corporate interests that are investing money in marketing through that organization. Arm wrestling safely not in that category of sport, but you can see why at an AFL level or NFL in the United States, or at the highest level of any professional high level sport, why those commercial interests want to ensure that the athletes aren't going to do anything to besmirch the name of the sport, and certainly that negative rub off and connotation for the brands that back those sports and make that investment. So but we've seen sports evolve, and UFC is one of those sports that's evolved, and we see that we can see that might well be the case in arm wrestling. As more money comes in, then there's money to pay for these testing regimes, and it's easier to enforce a leveler playing field, for instance, and it might just lead to a situation where you do have that unenhanced natural league and an enhanced league, where athletes are more open in terms of what it might be that they're using in order to achieve their high levels of performance.
Which one do you think will be more popular?
The enhancement, for sure. We all want to see gorillas get on the table, don't we? So, but that's but that, I mean, and that's something that the sport has to have a talk about. And we've discussed it before, where bodybuilding in the 80s and 90s was on the precipice of maybe becoming a mainstream sport and just didn't quite break through, and testing and all of that type of thing was a big part of that then, and stopped some of that big corporate money flowing into the sport. And then UFC seemingly learned from that experience, and as soon as it was viable and as soon as the money was there, they took that approach of, okay, well, let's legitimize the sport in such a way that it does become unimpeachable. And of course, now we look and see all of those massive brands that 15 years ago would not be associated with a sport like MMA, with human cockfighting, who are now throwing tens of millions of dollars at the UFC brand every year just to be a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, on the UFC that was on Sunday just gone, you had President Donald Trump sitting next to Elon Musk, sitting next to Kid Rock, And it was like, their cage side the
And then you
whole
got
time.
RFK in behind, and
Yeah,
you got
yeah, yeah.
the biggest names. Shaq was there. I mean, I think they went through a little all the celebrities that were also there just for that particular event. And there's a great little video online. It was like it doesn't stop. Like every big name that you've ever heard of in sports or entertainment seemingly was there. There was like 60 or 70. When they do those shots and there's like 2 or 3 famous people in the crowd. Well, this just kept going for like 7 minutes. It was insane.
Yeah.
And that speaks to the mainstream acceptance of USC and of MMA. And is there a day when that happens for arm wrestling? I think there is. I see arm wrestling definitely developing along a much more similar trajectory to MMA than any other sport, because there's too many similarities, and there's too much in alignment when it comes to the business case. So I feel like there is that point when there's enough money in the sport of arm wrestling where we can get a testing regime in place, and all the athletes feel that they're on an even playing field. Then that day will come. There'll be a period of I guess changeover, and maybe for some athletes it'll be the end of their respective careers. I think maybe you'll see that these athletes in their 40s, 50s aren't going to be dominating the sport, or certainly in that top echelon of names. And I think at the moment, arm wrestling needs those names. Arm wrestling needs your Jerry Cataracts. It needs your John Brazinks. It needs your Devin Larratts. It needs these guys. It needs their profile. It needs their legacy. It intrinsically entwined with that next generation of athletes as they come through the ranks. Some of their stardust needs to find its way onto the shoulders of those people that are now coming up, in order to make the sport legitimate, in order to cement its place in sporting folklore, and to give it that spot on the ledge it needs, just to get a foothold, so that it can make that next step. And so do we need drugs in arm wrestling right now? Yes, we do. For as long as the best guys
take as many as you can,
for as long as the best names and the biggest names and the biggest raw cards of the sport are in their 40s and 50s. 100% we do. We 100%, because these guys aren't competing. Like John Brazink's not competing against other 50-year-olds, or 55-year-olds. He's competing against 32-year-old massive dudes. I mean, this is no joke. Like, so if these guys need a little bit of assistance in order to get there, I think at this stage, those gentlemen are wise enough to make those decisions, and those health decisions themselves, and career decisions and determinations themselves, and at the same time, they just happen to be doing a great service to the sport.
Yeah, it is a question mark. You think, okay, hopefully in 10 years time, or even 10, 15 years time, when these legends that are currently the forefront of the talking points for arm wrestling, if their career has ended, they've moved on, they're not, if they are still competing, they're probably not going to be at that high level anymore. We just hope that there has been enough investment in the up and coming ranks, and we can find the next crop of superstars that will emerge and can be the new talking points. Because without that, as soon as these guys disappear, it sort of tumbles away, and then everyone's like, oh, but what about that? It's like, yeah, he hasn't competed in 20 years.
Yeah.
You're like, oh. So yeah, it definitely is a very important thing to continue the rise of arm wrestling. That's why we're very happy to see guys like Rickard, guys like Auden, these young guys, Hansa Hodzic, who are choosing arm wrestling as their sport instead of going the football route, instead of going with, I don't know, basketball or some of the other things that are available. It's like, no, this is where I want to be. And even though there's, at this point in time, there's not huge paydays, there's not like massive sponsorship endorsements, you're not going to make a full-time income from it unless you're like the number one in the world or something. But most of the people who are doing it do it because they love it. And that, I think, is what is driving everything forwards, is that the people who are involved in this sport, they all love arm wrestling, and they have chosen arm wrestling as the thing that they're going to give all of their effort and commitment to, as opposed to somebody who may have looked at sport and gone, I can do any of these and that one pays the most, I'm going to do that one, rather than being like, I love that one the most. It's like, yeah, if you're looking at okay, you could do rugby, you could do football, you could do baseball, you could do this, and you do this. Which one pays me the most one? The baseball one, you've probably got a big contract with that. And it's like, okay, I don't really like it, but sure, I guess,
Yeah.
versus I love arm wrestling, I'll do it for free and I'll pay my way around the world to go and do it.
Yeah. And I guess that's the big thing about what we've been trying to do over the last year or two with AWE is really provide a platform and a pathway so that athletes can, look at arm wrestling and say, well, look, I know there's not $1 million in the sport right now, but there might be in 5 or 10 years' time. And when that happens, I want to be ideally positioned. So, I'm going to start making my steps now. And I guess what's really cool is that we're starting to see, athletes like Brian Shaw and Larry Wheels and these types of personalities shining a light on the sport as well, and creating a pathway, if you will, for others to follow. And since Brian Shaw and Eddie Hall have been in the mix, and especially Brian Shaw, I'd say you see the strongman community now looking at arm wrestling, thinking, okay, maybe there is a sport for me after my strongman. Maybe this is something I can, transition into at some point and still use some of that strength that I've developed over the years, but take some of the pressure off maybe my knees or my hips or whatever it might be, because a strongman is such a tough sport on the body. We saw that at AWE Grand Prix too, where there was a good contingent there of the strongest men in Australia in the room, who were several of whom who'd never had any exposure to arm wrestling previously, and walked away with a passion and a zeal for the sport.
Yeah.
So it's fantastic to start see some of these athletes cross over and start to consider it a pathway. These are guys that have already had reasonably successful careers in their own chosen sport, that arm wrestling such that you can mature as an athlete much later in life compared to, say, any of the football codes, or I guess any of the popular sports. If we think of swimming or any of tennis or any of these traditional sports, there's sports that by the time you're 30 you're done.
Yes.
Whereas arm wrestling is one of those sports that if you're 30, you're young.
Yes.
And you've still got your best years ahead of you. So it is exciting to see these athletes cross over into the sport. It's wonderful because, that'll bring more attention, more dollars, and over time that momentum will build up and make arm wrestling that original that first destination for athletes, instead of maybe that second thing that they roll into later on in their career.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think especially with strongman, the difference, I think the major difference between that and a combative sport, with strongman, you're seeing the guys, they're trying to do the event as fast as possible versus somebody else. They're trying to beat somebody else in terms of time, or they're trying to get more reps than somebody else. Whereas arm wrestling, there's no question as to who won that match. Like, you are both facing off physically against each other, and you have to physically overpower the other person, which I think is the main appeal and the main attraction there, is that you get the answer to your question. Because you could say, okay, with strongman you got Marius Pudzianowski, but how would Marius go in an arm wrestle against Brian Shaw? I don't know, but I'd love to see it.
Yeah. So that's open some questions. I mean, we had that little AWE with Ashley Hoyter jumping on the table. Originally, her matchup was with Sarah Backman, and it would be very interesting to see how that match might pan out now, knowing what we now know. But she competed against Keziah Harrington, who just walked away, left and right hand Australian champion. 19 years old, or just turned 20, a young lady. She might be Australia's answer to Sarah Backman. She's a very attractive, tall girl, great physique, and again, like, she could do a lot of filling out too. Like, she seems reasonably slender, but when you're standing next to her, she's quite tall and solid. So you've got those two different athletes across the table from each other. Now, Ashley's powerlifting background was really the difference there. That horsepower was just so overwhelming on that occasion. But then you see Keziah a week later just do the same thing to everybody else in Australia. So there's definitely levels, and you think that for Keziah, she was almost 30 kilos lighter as well. So to see Keziah on the table against somebody who's maybe closer in terms of her physicality and weight category would be at an international level is something I think people are going to want to see in 2025.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Ashley, turning her attention to the sport and very quickly experiencing success, I'm sure is going to inspire other strong women
Mm.
and other powerlifting women to kind of think, you know what, I've got a bit of a niggle in my knee, or my ankle's not what it could be, and you know what, I might jump on the arm wrestling table when I go along to powerlifting practice after I've done my bench press, you know,
Yeah.
and give that a go. And it's starting to become a legitimate option for strength athletes.
Yeah, I do love that they get embraced and welcomed into the arm wrestling community as well. It's not like, oh, you're coming from strongman. You're like, yeah, you have no idea what you're doing. You think you're strong with it. It's none of that. It's like, oh, please come in. Like, we want you to come. We love you to get on the table, and we'll show you how to do it properly. And you know, see if your strength can translate into the technique that you've got to employ. But yeah, absolutely tremendous to see that other people are now sort of jumping into arm wrestling, and we're seeing that with the Brian Shaw and Eddie Hall are going to be having a match as well.
Yep.
Both former world's strongest man, and you know, facing off in an arm wrestle. It's like fantastic. Why not? I want to see that.
Fantastic. Yeah. Some people say, oh, these are joke matches or whatever, but I also kind of think of it like Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. You know, that was, you know, the main event, and the main event might have been little underwhelming in the end, but what a great undercard. And there's never going to be more eyeballs, or there, up to this point in the history of boxing, there's never been so many eyeballs on a women's professional bout as what there was just on Saturday gone. So you know, that's the effect that these big names like Brian and Eddie, that's the effect they can have on arm wrestling. You know, you don't think of this as a joke. Both of those men are going to be taking it seriously, and neither wants to put their legacy on the line and walk away embarrassed. That is for sure. This is no joke, and what they're actually doing is a tremendous service to our sport in profiling it and getting a conversation around it. Whereas, you know, it wasn't that long ago you talk to somebody and say, "Oh, your sport's arm wrestling." And you go, "It's not even a sport." And now I don't hear that. You know, now when you talk about arm wrestling, oh, I think I saw something on Instagram the other day about that, and chances are it was Brian Shaw or Eddie on the table or something, and the crossover appeal is such that rub off is finding its way into our sport.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. We got
Donald Trump does love arm wrestling.
I'd love to see Donald Trump arm wrestling. Trump air arm wrestled John Jones after he beat a New York firefighter. It was like he was going for the handshake where he pulls people in. He's like, come here.
It was that great image.
Captain Obvious says, I see Gabby versus Barboba rematch is happening at King of the Table as well. Can Gabby get the belt back? Potentially. Yeah, it was a good match. The first one, Barbara was the underdog. Obviously, Gabby being a multiple-time world champion and being very dominant for many, many years. It was so good to see Barbara able to find the answer and what she needed to do to get the victory and become maybe the next Gabby, you know, the next superstar in women's arm wrestling. So having a rematch makes sense. And if Gabby is got the answer to what went wrong in that first match, and maybe she got outplayed in certain areas, and she might have closed those gaps, and we might see her retain her title, but we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, always worth having a former champion come back to try to reclaim their glory if they've lost. And it was a good match as well. It wasn't a complete blowout. So yeah, Gabby's definitely got the ability to do it. Neil's index finger, which is Brian Parliament from Canada, says this could be the hugest or the huggest thing.
The huggiest, yeah.
Could be the huggiest thing ever for bringing in new fans from the strongman community. It could be. Yes, absolutely. And it just got me there. August. Sylvester's Talone. I want to plug a threat to an NHL team that if they lose in the playoffs, then they have to compete versus a local arm wrestling club on TV, but then they would lose twice. It's like, yeah, we're not happy about losing. It's like, yeah, go out and wrestle these dudes and get smashed.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think that's going to happen. But one of the fun things is that, you know, some of the clubs are going out and going to places like strongman training or you know, these football trainings are bringing a table and just being like, hey guys, like, you're very strong, you're athletic, like, this is something you might really enjoy, and
Mm.
just jump on and have a go. And people love it. I think that the great thing about it is that people can get on and just do it instantly. Like,
Yeah.
you don't need anything. I mean, you could do it on any table. Like, you could do it on the floor even, but or just standing. You just grab hold of somebody's shoulder. Um, but ideally, you've got the arm wrestling table set up. But you don't need a basketball. You don't need a court. You don't need the tennis racket. You don't need the swimming pool. You don't need the badminton thing. Like,
No,
you can do this anywhere at any time.
very
And
low cost of entry.
absolutely,
Yeah, I think I made the point on Paul Italia's podcast that if you were would you take your 9-year-old daughter to slap training, if slap is slap a sport, I guess? And the answer to that is no. But would you get your 9-year-old daughter to jump on the arm wrestling table and learn the sport from somebody who's maybe her same age, who's or a little bit older, who's willing to teach her all the tricks and get her confidence up? And the answer to that is 100% yes. And if
Mm.
you walk into any arm wrestling club, that is exactly what would happen if you took your daughter along. And that's why I think arm wrestling has not yet cracked the consciousness of the soccer mums. And these are the mums that won't let their kids play roughhouse sports or combat sports or football codes or anything like this. They don't want their little baby getting hurt. And they won't let their little baby jump on the arm wrestling table at the moment because they're so afraid of an arm break or something like this. I think where we win as a sport is when the soccer mums realise that arm wrestling is quite benign and the chances of injury are really low. But the effect of a child's confidence when they kind of have the secret power of being able to arm wrestle somebody who's much stronger and beat them, when the kid starts to develop their strength or have a reason to be physically active and to get out there and do some pull-ups and some chin-ups and to muck around with some weights or do that type of thing, or to go around to a friend's place and pull the table out on the carport and have a bit of a muck around with their mates on the weekend. That's when the sport really opens up. And so I think there's a few things. I'm going to hypothesize here about 2025, 2030 for our sport.
all right.
So one, we if we're able to do these few things, I think our sport will do extremely well over the next 5 or so years, over the next half decade, because the explosion of the sport up to now has been a post-COVID explosion. I think a lot of eyeballs turned to the internet during COVID, where everybody was stuck at home, and coming out the other side of that, people were just super excited to be jumping on the table and back in the rooms with people and doing all of that. And then we saw the rise of arm wrestling promotions and East versus West and King of the Table start to elevate sport and bring it a larger audience, and the emergence and the fading of other promotions, but certainly the elevation of the sport to a standard where if you're in the sport, you now have an aspiration, whether it's to compete on AWE or one day maybe East versus West, or be one of those main events on King of the Table, that or Knuckles Up or Arm Gods, whatever it might be. There's now something to be excited about and work towards if you're a good arm wrestler. If you're an Alex McKinnon, for instance, if you're one of those guys who's an emerging talent, all the promoters are looking for somebody who's around 100 kilos that who can compete against one of their guys that they've got, sitting in the background. So, that's kind of happened, and not much has evolved in that space. So none of the major promotions, well, let's say East versus West and King of the Table, haven't yet been able to shift the sport to the next gear. So we haven't seen emerge as the next UFC as yet. So they might, we certainly hope that somebody does, but we certainly hope that we do. But we hope that it will. But there's a few things that I think need to happen. One, we need to crack the consciousness of the soccer mums. Make arm wrestling a safe sport, which it is. I mean, a lot of mums would be very happy with their daughters playing netball with no thoughts or hesitations about what is going to end up chronic knee injuries for the rest of that child's life. But they're happy so what it is a perception of danger associated with arm wrestling that I think is something that if we can deal with as a sport, I think we win. That way we're getting more kids involved in the sport. Because at the moment, it's 18 to 35-year-old males, 97%. That's the people that are turning to the sport. If we can lower that age and have more mums and dads happy with their little son or daughter going to an arm wrestling club, I think we assure ourselves of that next generation.
Mm.
So I think that's one of the things that we need to do as a sport. I think also having pathways for professional athletes so that they can make that step across from where they're making money now and into arm wrestling, which has a lot to do with what the big promotions do in the next few years and the money that they're able to attract and bring into the sport. And I also think, that cross marketing and the appeal from strongman, from powerlifting, from other combat sports, and bringing those people into the arm wrestling tent. If we're able to do those three things, bring younger people in, create a pathway, and ultimately provide the sport or put the sport into a position where it can then emerge as a commercially viable proposition, so that sponsors and promoters can invest heavily into it, understanding that there's a greater chance and great potential for a rate of return. That's where we need to be. I'd also add to that development of different weight categories. We're very much stuck in the heavyweight, super heavyweight. That's what matters most. I think we need to look at what UFC have done and what boxing has done, and you can have sellout events with a welterweight or with a middleweight or with a lightweight main event, for instance. Combat sports are moving that way increasingly, Muay Thai and MMA, where women can be that main event. So having women competitive when they're not at that super weight, and the reason why that's important is because you rarely are you going to find a woman that's terribly attractive at 120 kilos, okay, or 110 kilograms. And 5'4". It's just what would be appealing is because it also doesn't look entirely healthy. But if you've got a weight category where women who aren't superhuman have that ability to be able to compete on an even keel, chances are they'll be more commercially more appealing, more saleable, and attract more eyeballs to the sport as well. That mightn't necessarily just be arm wrestling fans. So I think if we can get those four things right in the next few years, the sport's due to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got some good comments here. James Lee Gillenwater says comedian Brian Callen asked Brian Shaw about his piece. He said everything is proportional. That's good to know, James. Thank you for that. Sylvester Stallone says my daughter beat every kid in her class until this year. Now she's dating the boy that beat her. Well, there you go. That's the skill. And Brian Parliament says we have been getting tons of youngsters coming out here. Calgary Club has like 45 members between 15 and 25. Have some young guys in our Red Deer Club also. And he's spelling mistake there, but that's fantastic.
That's great news.
And Captain Obvious says,
signs.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like boxing, MMA, I like watching the lighter weights for the speed and technicality. Yeah, that's one of those things that I think it really relies on. Like if you're going to have the lighter weight classes getting attention, getting interest, it does rely on finding somebody who has the potential to be a superstar. And that is that they have that personality and that charisma to sell and get people interested in what they're doing. I mean, like Conor McGregor was the lightweight champion, and he has fought at featherweight as well. But he at welterweight, but he had that lightning bolt, and everyone was talking about this guy coming through the ranks, and it's like they didn't care the fact that he was a smaller guy. And then he'd be standing there and the referee would walk past him. The referee looked like Godzilla, and it was like, oh yeah, that's right, Conor's really small. But in terms of the people wanting to see him, he's got the charisma, he's got the showmanship, and he was winning fights by like amazing knockouts. So it was bringing attention to wanting to see him compete, regardless as to whether he was a heavyweight, whether he was a lightweight. They didn't care. But usually when you don't have that, like you don't have an interest in the person, it's like just show me the biggest, strongest guys,
Yeah.
and which is always going to be your super heavyweights.
Yeah.
But apart from that, if you can find your superstars in the lighter weight classes, that's where you can really start to sell those weight classes and create storylines, create drama, create interest. The flyweight division has always suffered in UFC. That's the smallest guys. I think they're like 45 kilos or something, which is absolutely tiny. And mostly because they didn't have somebody that had that really bright, charismatic, crazy personality that was going to draw a lot of interest. And then on the other side as well, they were small guys, and even though they're lightning quick, they're super technical, they're amazing, tremendous fighters. It's like people were just going, I reckon I could beat that guy.
I think the benefit of that, of course, is that then you've got chatter around each one of those weight categories that has a Connor-like personality, and UFC have done really well, post Connor, although it's always suspected he'll come back, but post Connor and Khabib, to keep that chatter going amongst those athletes that are at that top tier, but when the benefit that UFC have got is that they've got all of these weight divisions to be talking about. So it's really difficult to name many more, for most people, to name many more than, say, 3 or 4 heavyweights in the UFC, or 5 or 6 middleweights. Hard. The general public just don't have a mind for it. They've got a mind for 1 or 2 of the personalities, but there's always chatter around all of those weight divisions. Whenever an upcoming UFC event is being spruiked, then everybody's hyper conscious of who those guys are and who's next, if so and so wins, and what's coming up. There's always that talk. So arm wrestling doesn't have that. Arm wrestling just has, what's going on at the top end of the sport, essentially. And East versus West have got their 105, kind of belt there, which now may have faded in relevancy a little bit as a result, of Devin coming down and collecting that as well. But nonetheless, they've done something, and it would be great to see an 85 and a 65. And one of my favorite arm wrestlers to watch is Connor. Connor Holback. And Connor's 60, 65 kilos,
something like that.
Yeah. He's a lightweight guy, but even just watching him practice, like he's very technical. He's strong, and it's all deceptively strong too, because when you look at him, you think, what can he actually have? But he's got all of these connective tissue after all of these years of arm wrestling. It has developed in such a way that he's all mangled up, and he's hard to unravel, and he's a super strong guy on the table. But whenever you see him compete in a super match, you just know he's going to throw everything at it, and that's what people love to watch. Right now, there's not the eyeballs and attention on 65 kilos to warrant a promotion going and spending, $30, $40, $50,000 in putting together an event for it. I would love to see that be viable, because I think there's so many of the personalities in our sport that we're missing out on. So much of the talent in our sport that is missing out and being exposed, simply because there's only so much money to go around, and there's and all of that money is dedicated to attracting enough eyeballs to cover the cost of the event, so you can live to fight another day and put another event on. But AWE in the not too distant future would love to see some alternative weight categories, and to be shining a light on some of these other athletes that aren't heavyweights and super heavyweights, or who just naturally can't get to 100 kilos and be competitive, whose physicality limits them to maybe 70 or 75 kilos. Are they any less great as an athlete? Absolutely not. It's just that the money's just not there to attract the attention that's needed to make those events viable right now. So it'd be great to to experiment and bring some more of those categories under the banner.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you look at the way that UFC ran for many, many years was only 5 weight classes, and it was lightweight all the way through to heavyweight. And they didn't want to bring in anything below lightweight at all, mainly because there was not enough guys, there was not enough interest, and it was like it's a division. Say, your featherweights, your bantamweights, your flyweights, which they have now, because there's enough people that are competitive, enough people that will put on a show, and they can draw an interest and draw a crowd, and the promotion is willing to put them on their cards to to sell that.
Mm.
But yeah, lacking that, it is very difficult because, yeah, as you said, you're going to go with, okay, well, who's the biggest, strongest guys? Because that's probably what people will want to see. Well, it's probably the best thing we can showcase is, these monsters, 160 kilo, like 400-pound dudes or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, they step up and people go, oh my God.
Yeah.
Versus somebody like Connor, who is incredibly fun to watch. And it's like, that you would probably enjoy his match more than the other people's matches. But because, he's a smaller guy, it can be difficult to say, to draw as much interest in that. But I think as the sport grows, as the more and more people get involved in it, you'll see more and more people participating, more and more people that want to get involved that are of those weight categories, that especially if somebody comes along that has that real charisma and that real ability to talk and ability to sell, and they start taking over. It doesn't matter what weight class they're in. They could be like in the 60 kilo category, which is like 130, 40 pounds or something. And if they're charismatic, they're fun, they're exciting, they do something crazy, and it's like they bring interest. It's like, I want to see that dude. I don't care that he's not a heavyweight.
Yeah, I mean, Sarah Backman's a really good example of that. Is somebody who's always able to generate attention, is always marketing herself, and always creating commercial opportunities that are viable. Even though, and in some cases, she can't even compete against other women in a weight category. She's competing against men, or just did weekend gone or the weekend before, and so. But there's enough attention around Sarah Backman that people are going to have, they're going to pay a ticket, they're going to turn up, they're going to watch the live stream, they're going to be paying attention to the sponsors' logos, because they want to see Sarah's journey, and they want to see what win, lose or draw, what happens next. And we've got seemingly, two types of athletes that are, well, three types of athletes that are in our sport at the moment. You've got those that are A-grade quality guys. Doesn't matter if they did nothing on social, they're always going to get opportunities because they're always in the mix and they're those top names. You got those guys that create their opportunities because they're really good on social, and they bring an audience to each and every event that they do. And you might even argue that Eddie and Brian's match is a classic example of that. If neither of those guys had any following online, would Core Sports be inviting them over to put on that match?
No.
And absolutely not. So there's these great opportunities for those athletes that are able to promote themselves, and then you've got those others that just believe that because they're really good, that should be enough. And they're such purists that they believe that anybody gets an opportunity ahead of them that might necessarily be technically as good as them, or won as many medals, or done as many competitions, that they're all just fake arm wrestlers, and that the whole thing's shoddy. Now, they're the people I feel sorry for, because they're locking themselves into a paradigm where they're not ever going to get around to doing the thing that's going to elevate their opportunities in the sport. So my simple request to those people is, in 2025, maybe put those thoughts behind you and start developing your profile on Instagram, start creating content, start showing people part of your world, start sharing your thoughts on upcoming matches, start showing us your training videos, start telling us what you're doing in preparation of your next match. Tell us what happened if you lost, what went wrong if you lost a match, what went right, what your next opportunities are. That if you want to be an athlete that's making money doing what you love doing in the sport, then you really don't have any other choice at the moment. You can't wait for Coca-Cola to sponsor you so you can be an arm wrestler. You're going to really have to generate additional income and the additional profile that's required to get you the opportunities through social media.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is surprising to me that some people will spend so much time training and getting better and better at their sport or their craft or whatever it is that they're doing, and they spend zero time on promoting themselves. And it's like, oh, but if I get really, really good, then people will give me the opportunity. It's like, it doesn't work that way. I mean, every single weekend in the United States, there is tournaments, and there's multiple tournaments happening. If you win the tournament, it's like, great, you are the winner for today, but you're one of 4 other people that also won a tournament and tomorrow there'll be another 4 winners, and next weekend there'll be another. It's like you're lost in the mix there. So
and the whole time Arden Taranenko was there filming, and nobody knows what the results were, but everybody knows that Arden was there.
right, it's
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that counts. You go, who is and Arden Taranenko? Why do people know who he is? Because he puts himself out there on his social media stuff all the time, and has done for 11 years.
Yeah.
So, you can look through the crowd and go, oh, that's Arden Taranenko there. He's not even competing.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, but there he is. I know him. It's like, well, how do you know that guy? It's like, oh, he has a YouTube channel. He does arm wrestling and stuff. It's like, what about the guy who won the tournament? Never seen him before. No idea who he is.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think 2025 is going to be owned by those people that take that advice, but those people that are young athletes that love the sport, that are just thinking now that, you know what, if I keep at it in the next few years, I could be on one of those big stages. I could be at an AWE or a Knuckles Up or an East versus West. So those guys, as much as they're training at the gym, need to be training with their thumbs. They need to be online. They need to be creating their profile. They need to be developing themselves as a personality that people either love or hate, whatever it might be. But here's one thing for sure, that Ryan Bowen is always part of the conversation.
Yeah.
Love him or hate him, he is unavoidable. And serves as a great example to those young guys and girls that are in the sport right now that want to make something of it. Had the opportunity to talk to Keziah Harrington, and she was talking about that she's relatively young, 20 years old. She's had some early success in arm wrestling, and she's now a national champion in Australia again, and is doing exceptional things. But wondering, is this really my sport? Is this really what I'm going to be doing? And I just said to her, so what other sport have you done, or that would have given you the chance to go to Istanbul, to go to Asia, to do all those things, just all in the last little while, come to Adelaide. So essentially you're getting to travel the world for free, doing the sport that you really enjoy.
Yeah.
And win, lose or draw, you've got all of those experiences that you'll be talking about for years to come. You'll talk about how you had this match today with your great grandchildren. And you'll be these are just experiences that'll be with you for the rest of your life. And so for some athletes, it's going to be, hey, what I wouldn't mind that free trip to Istanbul, or that holiday to a qualifier, or whatever. I'm gonna, that can be, how many people genuinely get to travel the world doing a sport that they love doing. Those opportunities are out there. But if those same athletes are documenting those journeys and putting their story on social media, then that's when they develop a following. That's when those opportunities come more regularly. So we want to encourage all those athletes that are out there to be thinking about that as you wrap up the year for Christmas, and start planning out your 2025. If you're an athlete and you're not getting the opportunities that you think you deserve, then that's the way to look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I mean, even for myself, traveling around the I never thought, you get into the sport, and then it's like my first night there, if they said, okay, you're going to be going to Ireland, competing there, and you're going to be going to India and spending a month in India twice, and then you got to go all around the world, all around Australia, multiple times. It's just been absolutely crazy, and it's like that's where this is going to take me, and this supposed kitchen table sport.
yeah, it is. It's kind of it is amazing when you think about it. There are great opportunities out there, and if you and you don't even, it's not even on the basis of your sporting prowess that you're flying to India and being invited to be the English commentator on Pro Punja League, and but that's not something that would have ever have happened if you never jumped online and spoke to a camera before.
Yeah.
If you didn't develop that profile, there would have there's millions of people in India. There's thousands of people. There's so many more people that have got more sporting commentary experience, that have got higher profiles, that are that have presented big sports on, and yet it was Hollywood Matt Connelly that got the opportunity because of all of that groundwork. And so the sport opens doors.
Yeah, absolutely.
To those that are willing to do some of the work. And now is not the time to get all sassy about, oh, I'm not going to do that because, I don't want to be on social media. Now's the time to go all in and absolutely smash it. And if you don't know how and you're not sure where to start, then you can always reach out to Hollywood Matt Connelly and the team here at AWE, and we'll do all that we can to guide you through your journey and give you every chance of success on the arm wrestling table and beyond.
Absolutely. I think we should wrap it up there. Thank you, everyone, for coming in the chat today. It is great to be back with the esteemed gentleman. It is Dave Stockbridge. It's a bow of respect. Oh, fantastic. And thank you, everyone, for jumping in the chat there. And we'll get this as a regular thing. We want to get things
happening. We'll get back here every week or so, whenever you're free, man.
Oh, whenever I'm free.
And thank you to everybody that's already watched the AWE Grand Prix 2. If you haven't already, head over to AWE Underground channel and watch that. We're at 12,000 views. I think we've got 70,000 views on AWE Grand Prix 1. So the numbers keep climbing on that one, of course. And I think something like 170,000 views on Mazahir versus Ryan Bowen or something like that.
Wow.
150, 100. It's a big number anyway. So thank you to everybody that keeps tuning into the channel and supporting us and who've been listening to the podcast here today. And we can't wait to bring you AWE Grand Prix 3 and 4 and 5. And we're planning away for a big 2025 now. So we can't wait.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, we'll leave it there. We'll finish with a double bicep. Are you going to hit the double bicep as well with the bigger arms than mine, just to show me up? I get washed out with the light here.
It's not good. It's not good posing lighting.
It's all right. It's all right. They can see it. It's in the contract.